Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. Today, we're going to have a very interesting show. I'm bringing you one of the collection of what I call my super friends of podcasting. And we have the pleasure of speaking with Michael Munoz. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me on your show. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I think one of my missions is to try to spread awareness of other people's podcasts, since I've been, a little successful, and in large part because of you. You're just as successful as your peers, and we have a great community of podcasters that all kind of work together, share tips, and make each other better.
For sure. Those the community of podcasters we are a part of is definitely really, really supportive. It's definitely of that mantra, it takes a village. And so, yeah, I've met so many great people through that village, including you. So, yeah, I completely agree.
So today I want to take a little bit of time and find out who is Michael Munoz. I'm saying that right?
Yeah, Michael Munoz.
Yes.
That's me.
So the first thing I want to talk about is you're Puerto Rican.
I am nuyorican. Hey.
My father was in the Navy, and we were stationed in Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico. And I fell in love with the culture. And some of the
beautiful.
most beautiful, friendliest people I've ever met in my life.
Absolutely. We are party people, to say the least.
Yes. All right. So the first weekend we were there, you feel strange because you're in a strange place. I don't speak Spanish or any of that. And we met this family on the beach, and they were like, come on, let's welcome you. Let's have a party. The next thing I know, it turns into this whole big event. They put a pig in the ground, and
the food.
It was on ever since then.
That's it. That's the way we do. And it's interesting, there is a lot of talk these days, which is freaking fantastic, about culture, about race, about, communities of color. And growing up, I grew up here in Brooklyn, New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
To a very Puerto Rican family. My mother was first, although we are American, right? My grandparents came over and had my mother here. My father came over from Puerto Rico. And, we're part of a diaspora culture, much like the Mexican people are, much like a lot of people who come to either mainland America for, more opportunity. And that being said, my mother took out a lot of loans for me to go to private school, aka white people's school. And
right.
so that journey was really, really different for me, in the sense of, growing up through a private school system and being afforded that luxury, right? Even though it took us forever to pay these loans off, right?
Mm-hmm.
That my mother was smart enough to be like, no, I want a better life for my kids. And so we're going to do this. But then add the bullying on top of that, right? Because kids are terrible to each other. And add me kind of trying to discover who I am through the process. I kind of shied away from the culture because the cool kids were not Puerto Rican kids, and there were very few and far of us in between those schools that I went to. And so I really wanted to adapt to the cool kids, to stop to stop the excess noise that was coming at me, you know,
Mhm.
around me. So I shied away from the culture for quite some time until I discovered, you know, in my early 20s, a group of, because I've had a long journey and a lot of jobs, and one major thing I did for a while was theater, and I discovered a bunch of Black and Latin theater actors that we became this group, and kind of reintroduced me to the culture
Mhm.
in a different way, and showed me the love and appreciation in a way that, like, I kind of felt like I was missing out again. And so yeah, that my journey through being Puerto Rican is very, very complicated and interesting, to say the least.
The one thing that surprised me the most once I actually got to the island is there are Puerto Ricans that are lighter than you and darker than me.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to think about it, right? It was the indigenous people of Puerto Rico, and then, you know, Spain invaded,
Hmm.
right? England invaded. Like, you know, they brought the slaves, the enslaved,
Hmm.
over from Africa. So like, there's all this mix of culture, right? Puerto Rican people are indigenous. Puerto Rican people are Black. You know, Puerto Rican people, right, have that Euro culture integrated into them, right? So we're a little bit of everything.
Yeah, it really, sometimes you think you know until you like MTV. You think you know, but you have no idea. You think you know what you know about until you actually see it or have to experience it face to face, and then you start stripping back the layers of. I'm a big component of there's a lot of miseducation out here. And until
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
actually experience something, you don't get to see the true essence of what it is.
I mean, well, this is a huge discussion. We're going down the road of, and sure, I'm here for it, right? I don't necessarily know if I have like the 3 hours or 4 days to have, or 8 months to have this discussion of like colorism, and then the the education of not only the people on the outside of the culture, but the people on the inside of the culture too, because, you know, bigotry and racism exists everywhere, and there's a whole part of the culture too that denies the African heritage, right?
Mhm,
Problematic.
mhm.
There's like this whole thing and this whole super discussion we can surely go down this road of, but
Hey, I'm
it's
here for
not
all
like
the isms, all the
it's
isms.
not, it's just not one-stop shopping here when we're talking about this subject in particular, and I mean, within the Heights, the movie, and the slight backlash it got for not having this Afro-Latino representation in there, you know? But
Mhm,
it was like, you know, and a lot of people, including me, are of the mindset, especially when it comes to this movie, that there's nothing like this that existed before, and nothing in this way. And we can feel two ways about it. And it's art, and we should feel two ways about it, right? And it should be causing this conversation. But, you know, we could see it for how great it was, but we could also see it for its shortcomings. And I think a big shortcoming was the subject of colorism, and how, yes, Afro Latinos were not represented in the movie, but there could have also been the subject of the discrimination within the culture of uh, the Afro Latinos themselves. And so, once again, this is a huge,
yeah,
huge, huge,
yeah.
huge,
And I
huge road.
noticed that when I was there on the island,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
there is a
Sometimes,
yeah, and then you'll have the funniest part to me was when I was there, and like my hair was a little bit longer. If it gets a little longer, it's a little
yeah.
curlier, and people would just come to me and just start speaking Spanish. I'm like, whoa, up, slow down, slow down. But and to your point, I do need to watch the movie. I haven't watched it yet.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
So I want to, that's something that special. So I told you I'm here for the isms, and that's one of the reasons I invited you today, because you represent your own unique set of isms, and I represent mine, and I kind of wanted to cross compare the two. And with that said, it's Hollywood has been doing that for a long time. Like, white people in Cleopatra.
Well, yeah, listen, once again, where does it all stem from, right? Where can we say it all kind of stems from? Well, um, power to the white people, right? Here we go. In the sense of, right, this, and we're coming full circle on my Puerto Rican journey here.
Mhm.
The cool kids in school were what? White.
Mhm.
And that's all I saw. That was the ideal, right? So coming up and being bullied terribly through school, I wanted nothing more than to be that,
Mhm.
right? Which was white, right? In school, because that's the only example I had of kids that weren't being bullied, kids that weren't like, being messed with or whatnot, like quote unquote normal, right? Where does that extend to, right? We can extend this to, right? European Euro culture coming into, black and brown communities and like asserting themselves as the ideal. I mean, even in Indian culture, when you get married, there's this whole ceremony where they like take the bride and like try to lighten her skin.
Mhm.
And it's like, wait, what? Why? Right? Because that's beautiful.
Right.
But wait,
But then
what?
I find it's weird that a lot of times, especially in beauty, they tend to try to go with the darker, like the fuller lips and, puffing up the cheeks
Yeah, I
and
mean, yeah, Sean, we're gonna be here for like 8 days. I'm telling you. I am telling you, and it's like, yeah, we just, I don't know. There's the resolution and the road to resolution and to getting people to like kind of come together and just be and live and love is long, right? I just don't think there's a, I mean, the answer is simple, but getting people there isn't so simple,
right, right. All right. So before we get off the subject, what is your favorite Puerto Rican dish? And then I'm gonna
Oh
tell
my
you
God,
mine.
easy. Easy, easy. It's a dish called pernil.
Mhm.
It's pork shoulder. It's roasted pork shoulder. It sits in the oven all day, and then so it gets like kind of like pulled pork-esque,
Mhm.
but then they crisp the skin. So like you got this like crunchy, crispy skin, and this like really juicy pork. Oh, it's so good. That and my mother's rice. There's nothing like my mother's rice.
All right. All right. So I'm gonna tell you my favorite, and unfortunately, I can never find it like at a restaurant or maybe I need to go where it's more like food trucks or something because it's a street food. I love Pinchos.
Um, Where could you, I mean, just go up. Where are you located
See, I'm in
again?
Virginia. You're in New York, so you have a
Oh,
whole lot of more options than what I have.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
yeah,
for
and when
sure.
I go
Maybe,
to
maybe,
Latin
maybe you
restaurants,
need
they'd be like,
to.
"A what?" I'd be like, "A pincho." It's on a stick and it come with a little
Yeah,
cocoa bread on top, and that's what I want.
yeah, yeah,
We used to
yeah.
have this vendor outside the base, like less than a mile outside the base on the main road, and he actually had it was a real lean to, like no nails. It was like a big piece of wood on each side and the back, and the grill inside, and that's all it was. No top, no door, no nothing.
Yeah,
And he used to
homemade.
sell
Got it.
pinchos for $1 a piece. Okay, so he also
My favorite is that you're lamenting Los Pinchos. Like you're just really like you
my
really
parents
went
could not
there.
go down that street and not pull over for the pincho.
Listen, food
I would
memories
have a
are
total fit in the car.
listen, food memories are real. And I mean, I'm sure we'll get to my food podcast of it all,
Hmm.
but the like food memories and everything that happens around food isn't just for sustainability, right? Obviously we need it to live, but so much happens around food memories. Like think of that, like I bet you whomever's listening, if you think about your mother's, I don't know, spaghetti, or your like me and my mother's rice, that food sense memory, the smell of that, the what that tastes like comes back immediately. Or if you grew up eating and loving, I don't know, Chef Boyardee spaghettios or
Hmm.
something like that.
And it doesn't
That
have to
food,
be fancy. It doesn't have to be
no,
fancy.
no,
Yeah.
not at all. It's the food sense memory of it all that triggers emotion, from good food to bad food.
My whole time in Puerto Rico, that is my memory. Not the rainforest, not the incredible beaches,
The
not
food.
the mall Plaza Las Americas, not that,
Yeah.
which is
Nope.
one of the most incredible malls I've ever seen in my life. It's the Pinchos. It's the $1 Pincho.
That and well, my favorite thing to do is when you're driving through like the suburbs of Puerto Rico and whatnot, the guys on the side of the road
They'll
with the
wash your
coconut.
windows. Oh no, okay,
No,
yeah,
with the coconut.
yeah, and they
You
cut off the
literally,
top. Yeah,
yeah, you literally pull over on the side of a mountain where you feel like you're gonna fall off, and they chop off the top of the coconut, bing bang boom, stick a
with these
straw in it.
huge machetes.
Yeah,
Yo,
yeah,
so in Puerto Rico, the all in one tool is the machete.
yeah.
A
Oh,
machete is
everyone
a
owns one.
food preparation device. You can cut your grass with it. It's a
Yeah, they do
weapon.
everything.
It's
Hmm.
everything with the machete. And the other thing I learned, so you get me excited now. The other thing that I learned is siestas are real.
Oh yeah. Well, it's
Oh,
so hot. It's like you get to the middle of the day where it's so hot, you can't do
it's
anything,
lunch and then siesta.
especially if you live like in the middle of the island, like in the mountains and in the country. It's so hot that you legit can't
But
function.
siesta is so real. It's like a part of the day. Like
Yeah.
not to look for or ask for any services between 12 and 2
No.
o'clock. Don't the whole
No.
island like takes a nap, which is
Yep.
great.
Italy too. I remember a few years ago, pre-pandemic, my mother and I went to Italy for the first time together, and we were on the Amalfi Coast, and we're like, we couldn't find anything or anyone, and I was like, darn it, we forgot the siesta of it all,
Yes.
you know?
See, and I think maybe people would be in the States would be more productive if we
Well,
had national siesta.
well, we are a culture of live to work as opposed to the Europeans that are work to live culture. Do you get that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, definitely.
the Europeans, like, they work to live, so they'll work hard, but then they get like 4 months vacation from their job because it's like state mandated, or 3 months from their, that they can take off, or because it's mandated by the country, as opposed to here in America, we live to work, got to go to
Yeah.
work, got to make some money. I mean, I essentially have three jobs right now, right? Because I got to pay my rent in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's, once again, we're going down another road of of social economic wealth, and like, the problems with that, and livable wages, and ugh.
Well, let's talk about it because so when you live like we're both on the East Coast, but I'm in Virginia, you're in New York. You're in the heart of New York City. And one of the things, like my daughter, like for her 16th birthday, she's 14 now. For her 16th birthday, she's been saying forever and ever and ever she wants to take a tour in New York. So I'm probably going to do that. But she has no idea that I would maybe rather pay to go to Disney World than to spend a couple of
Well,
days in New York because New York is so expensive.
I mean, I don't necessarily know. I'm gonna have to disagree with you here. I don't necessarily know if Disney is less expensive than New York, because
It's a good equal.
those tickets to get into the park, you're spending like $200 a person just to get into the park, and then the next day you got to spend another two
Do it
hundred dollars or
again, right?
whatever it is.
And not to count the
Um,
$12 hot dog that you got to get.
it, and that's not even a foot long,
Right.
okay?
So what I would,
And
but in New
so,
York, like the things I want to experience, it would be like I want a real New York dinner, and a real New York dinner from a nice, reputable restaurant is going to be at least 100, 150 a person, maybe.
yeah, I had this conversation the other day on somebody else's podcast that brought up a subject of a restaurant in Philly or someplace, I forget where, that had $100 minimum.
Mm-hmm.
And I go, I have a lot of questions about that. I'm like, is it you pay the $100 beforehand, and they have this experience set up for you, and then anything you order extra they charge you for,
Mm-hmm.
or you go in and they hand you a menu and you're left to your own devices as long as you spend $100. I was like, because there's a big difference,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And I go, yeah, it's a steakhouse. And I was like, you walk into a steakhouse, you're most likely going to spend a hundred dollars
$100.
out the gate. You don't need the minimum. But I said to him, listen, there are some restaurants here in my neighborhood in Midtown Manhattan that are not Michelin rated, that are not 5-star, that are like middle of the road. Like if you look on one of those rating apps, they're like $2 sign, like middle of the road
Hmm.
restaurants that I will go. And by the end of the night, I have spent $100
Right.
for the
But do you
experience.
feel that you got your $100 worth?
Oh, you better believe it.
Because a good
Sometimes I do.
restaurant experience isn't just all about the food. It's about the
Yeah.
ambiance, the service, the
Yeah, of course.
experience.
Like, but sometimes, like here, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a great meal. I mean, there is a Sichuan Chinese restaurant here, in Chelsea, Manhattan, that's cheap. That's so cheap, right? And it's very like, it's very nuts and bolts, right? It's no frills, but the food is incredible and it's super cheap and you definitely get your money's worth. And I don't think the dollar sign equates to the restaurant experience sometimes.
Mhm.
If there it's just like here's the food and the company's great and the food is great, and then why do I have to spend $100 or
Mhm.
$200 or $400 on this meal? Yeah, sometimes do I want like if I'm going out with friends for a special occasion or whatnot, do I want to live my like best fancy life and head over to Le Bernardin or something, and I know I'm gonna spend a pretty penny, sure, with the bottles of wine
Right,
and
right. Like
the nice
if I'm
table
spending
service
if
and
it's $100 minimum and it's not cloth napkins, I'm going to be hot.
yeah.
That's
Well,
going to
if
be a
it's a
problem.
$100 minimum and you aren't coming to the table to be like, "Okay, this is the way you need to spend this $100," or "This is the best way to spend this $100," right? And I'm just, like, left to order some steak and fries for 100, I'm gonna be mad about
Okay.
it, like,
And
you
then with
know?
the flip of that is I also want the bodega experience. I
Oh,
want
yeah.
the the
The
who
bacon, egg, and cheese of
the
it all
bacon
because
can
there's nothing,
right and especially in New
and
York,
the
who
coffee light
it's
and
the
sweet.
ongoing thing. Who has the best slice of pizza? I want to do that.
Oh,
You know,
yeah,
I want both. I want all of it. I want
yeah.
all the experiences.
I think there's a way. Yes, you're gonna spend some money here, maybe even some Disney money here, but, the fact of the matter is, I think the diversity of it all,
Mhm.
as opposed to and I mean, each in their own right have their own experience and whatnot, but the diversity of culture and experience you'll get here as opposed to going to a theme park
Right.
experience.
Well, I'm gonna get the real experience, not the Epcot Center experience. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things I want to do when I go to New York with her. Like, yes, I want to do one of. It's not too much of the touristy things I want to do, but I wouldn't mind getting on the bus, the little double decker bus, and doing that thing. But I also
Worth
want to
it.
take her through, Chinatown and
Yeah.
through Brooklyn. And I'm an extreme hip hop head, and I love hip hop, so I want to go to the Bronx. I want to go
Yeah.
where hip hop started. I want to go where the Latin Quarter used to be. That's the things that I've always heard about that I want
Yeah,
to see and I want
and
to
that's totally
experience.
doable and not expensive.
Yeah.
That's
So
totally
it's like
doable.
I got to plan it out and do a mix of both.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
you get here one day and you do like a tourist thing, like, you do the bus and like the Edge or the Empire State Building or Rockefeller Center, because once you've gone up on one of them, it's the
It's the same
experience is the
experience.
same.
Yeah.
Like you've seen the skyline, great. Boom, right? Or you take the Staten Island ferry and you pass by Lady Liberty and you wave and you take the picture and then you take the Staten Island ferry back, right?
Mhm.
Because it's free as opposed to go to Liberty Island if you really want. There isn't there, and
I'm
you
allergic to
you
steps. I'm not, no.
so and I don't even know if you're allowed to go up
Anymore?
through,
Yeah.
yeah, anymore. So I personally don't see the value there, but if that's your thing, absolutely. And the Staten Island ferry is free though.
Mhm.
And then right, that's day one, right? You do that. Then the next day, right, fine, head up to the Bronx because you're going to be there. You're going to be in like a neighborhood.
Mhm.
You're just going to be in a neighborhood. So yeah, you're going to walk through, but like, and maybe you'll eat in that neighborhood,
Mhm.
but it's not like, and you're with a 16-year-old, so it's not like you're gonna be drinking and partying and this and that. So you'll go to the neighborhood for the morning, and you'll see the neighborhood and you'll have lunch and then you'll come back and then you'll be like, okay, what are we doing tonight? Let's walk through Times Square,
Mhm.
right? Broadway will be open. Let's catch a show that night.
I
Boom.
want to like at least catch a show and maybe take her to the
Yeah.
Apollo.
Yeah. Uh, uh, Two birds, one stone,
Mhm.
right? Go to the Apollo, and that's your show experience.
Okay.
Boom. You know, like there's a way to do it, and a fantastic way to do it to have that entire full experience. You know, right? And then you walk through Chinatown and you eat at Joe's Shanghai, and you have the most amazing soup dumplings, and you leave there spending $20 because
Mhm.
Joe's Shanghai is cheap and really, really good.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
why I'm
and
definitely
then you
going to have to
end.
hit up Michael before I go.
Yeah. And then you end the trip with the fancy 16th birthday dinner because you didn't throw her a sweet 16.
Mhm.
Boom. You know?
Mhm.
And it doesn't have to be $500 a plate. It could be double dollar sign good, you
Mhm.
know? Or like just good. It doesn't have to be like super, super like expensive. Like, cause yeah, that's great in itself, but like, you know, it can just be like, yeah, I'm gonna spend some money, but this I know the food is gonna come out good and the service is gonna be good, but it doesn't have to be like, okay, here is this and here is
Mhm.
this and $500 later, ahead.
All right. So I always ask my New Yorkers that I talk to, do you own a car?
I used to own a car. His name was Lance. I owned him from because he was pretty on the outside, rough on the inside. It was a Honda Accord 1992 or something like that.
Hey, I had one of
Uh,
those.
Something like that. And I owned it from 2001 to 2002, and then it got stolen from the outside of my mother's house and
Oh,
totaled.
dang. But
Yeah.
that's the one of the beauties of New York. Like living in New York, you don't
Getting your
necessarily
car
have to
stolen?
car. What? No, but you don't necessarily have to
That's
have
one
a
of the
car.
beauties of New York. Go and get your used car stolen and then get no blue book value from insurance. Yeah.
But like here, we're I like to say we're a rural city. Yeah, a rural city with a splash of urbanness, right? Where you have to have a car here, though. Our public transportation sucks. Like if you don't have the and a certain point, you have to. At one time, I owned two cars when I was younger because if one car goes down, then you're short. You're in trouble. Like I mean, like buses stop. First of all, if buses go anywhere near you, they stop running at like 10 o'clock. You're done. No train, no nothing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about the New York experience is not having to have a car. And I've
No.
also heard the conversations of how expensive it is to have a car in the city. Not just the car and
Well,
the car payment is the parking. Parking is like
that
rent.
too. Well, that unless you park on the street and then you got to be up every morning to like switch because of this the street cleaning, the trash
Mhm,
collection, someone broke into your car. Um, but I used to own a Vespa. I got a
mhm,
great deal on a Vespa. Like someone was really getting rid of it and I
mhm.
paid nothing for it. And that was fun and scary at the same time, but
But see,
super
that
fun.
experience in New York would be great. Like I know this one guy in New York. He has one of those things called a one wheel, where it's just the
Oh,
wheel with the
that's a death
motor.
trap. I'm terrified of those. That's a death trap. No, thank you. All the more power to you if you have one of those, but that there are too many potholes and too many crazy people. Even the Vespa was a little scary at times, like the cabs trying to run me off the road. And I mean, I had a high-powered Vespa. It wasn't a little like moped. It was like the level below motorcycle here. And so, but even still, when I went to go register it at the DMV, there was like a $250 charge,
Mhm.
MTA charge. And I said, what is that? And then they were like, oh, the MTA charges you for not riding the
The
MTA.
train.
And
Oh.
I said, "Are you kidding?" I go, "I can understand that for cars because
Mhm,
of gas emissions and whatnot,
mhm,
but the Vespa, I would fill up maybe once every week and a half because it had great gas mileage.
mhm.
I was spending like maybe $10 to fill up the Vespa, right? I was not what I was doing with that like Vespa was like not emitting. It was better for the environment, better for the city. It didn't take up space, you know. But people were jerks with it, you know. People would pick it up and move it because they wanted to park their car. People would knock it
Wow.
over. Yeah, I
Wow.
got it towed once because somebody moved it in front of a whatchamacallit, a fire hydrant.
Huh.
And then finally I had to total it out and I got full blue book value for it. Thank you.
Hey, insurance is great in New York.
All right. So and the insurance wasn't really expensive for it either. But it was like having a dog or having a puppy because I was always chasing after it.
Mhm.
I was forever chasing after the Vespa. I was like, this is stressful, you know?
Yeah.
I don't need this.
All right, so now I want to talk about what I brought you here to talk about, and we're gonna knock out two birds with one stone. Tell me about your podcast.
So my podcast is called In Yo Mouth, right? You can see. I don't know if there's a video component here, but I'm wearing some of the merch. And In Your Mouth is the only food podcast on the airwaves that celebrates LGBTQ people in the food space.
First of all, we're gonna have to trade merch. I think my daughter is one of your biggest fans, and every morning when we're in our little group, every time you come on stage, she perks up. And
I
this is
love that.
really one of the catalysts that why you're here today. She was like, "Daddy, you got to talk to him. That's who I want to know about."
Yeah, and but tell the people why she wanted me on the pod because you had said to this to me and to the group actually, and I was like, you know what? If everybody was like your daughter, the world would be like a very different place, and hopefully the children of the future are we are being left in good hands.
Well, this is going to be like my. All right, so you got to help me with the letters.
Yeah, go
What
ahead.
are
That's
all
fine.
the letters? Is LBTQI?
Yes, LGBTQIA.
All right. So my daughter was like, "That's what you need for your episode, Daddy. I want to know more about him, and I want to know about what makes him different in the gay lifestyle." And I was like, "You might be right." And she was like, "Cause Daddy, you need to learn about it." And I was like, "You right." So, all right. So I did.
Listen, I'm always on a soapbox of representation matters, right? And not only for people of color, but for LGBTQ people and especially LGBTQ people of color, right? And I mean, we've always been here, right?
Mhm,
Let's not get it twisted. We have always been here, right? Not only people of color, but LGBTQ people
mhm,
have been here, right? Trans people have been here since the beginning of time. Let's not get it twisted,
mhm,
folks. It's in the history books. It's on the frescoes and the cave drawings. It's in Greek pottery. We've been here. We've been here. But because of religion and because of people and their causes and religion,
mhm,
right? And the interpretation thereof, right? And keeping certain people down, right? Keeping certain cultures down. It's turned into this thing that needed to be hidden or away or or is discriminated against and so on and so forth, you know? Much like much like the issue of race.
yeah. And when me and her had this conversation, that's where being a black man raised in America, I could see where it's different, but I can see where we faced a lot of the same struggles and a lot of the same
Yeah.
um what's the word? The word is escaping me right now. The same discrimination.
Yes, the struggle is the same, the discrimination is the same. Is the history of black people, of black and brown people being enslaved and tortured and just manipulated and so on and so forth greater? Absolutely. We're not like we're not qualifying like
Mm,
who's more beaten down at this point, you know. But at this on the same token of it all, you know, the discrimination is still there. We can relate and cross relate the struggle. We can understand each other, you know. We can be the support system for each other. And we have is what people don't realize. All right? Because the gay liberation movement was started and has always been headed by not only people of color, but Black trans women
Mm-hmm.
have been at the forefront of the movement since the beginning of time. Black trans women. And you have to think about, why is that? Why is that? Right? And it's, well, you know, they're already the ultimate minority.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this sense, I think,
It's
at
like a
least in my
mixture
mind.
of all of the minorities put together.
Yeah, it's like, well, what else do we have to lose at this point?
Right.
Right? They're trying to take it all away from us. So, you know what? Let's let's just go in the front line, because it's like either get beaten down or, you know, fight back.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the thing. And, you know, Harvey Milk, politician in California who was
Mm-hmm.
murdered for being gay, his campaign ran on one of the first out politicians. His campaign ran on this notion of, come out into the streets, come out and let the people know who you are, because then they'll realize that you are their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, their neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and their friends. And it breaks down the stereotype, it breaks down the walls, being like, oh, well, I've known you for this long, and this is this. Like, well, this isn't, like, what's so bad about this, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And also, why are you so concerned about who's in my bedroom? I'm
I,
not asking you. I'm not asking you who's up in your bed.
so I think from my perspective is I don't know the rules. And it seems like the rules have changed. Or maybe not even the rules have changed. The now that it's more upfront, I'm very conscious of I don't want to accidentally disrespect someone. You know what I mean? And because
Yes, and I
it's
think,
go ahead, go ahead.
yes. Sorry, let me just jump in here. And I think it's the same thing that's also happening to Black people in
Hmm.
America with the white people and white
Right,
fragility
because they're
right
like,
now.
I don't know what I can say now.
I don't know the rules now. I
Right.
don't, what can I say, and what is this, and educate me. And then people are angry, being like, oh, well, it's not my job to educate you. And it isn't. It isn't. But sometimes sometimes we just need to ask the question. You
Mhm,
know, the greatest example of this is my mother, right? My
mhm,
and my mother loves me and I love her. We have a great relationship. And one of the things I'm proudest of my mother is, and my mother's old school Puerto Rican. She grew up in a very old school, very Catholic house,
mhm,
right? So some of the new terms and some of the new the the things that are coming to the forefront, she doesn't understand,
mhm,
right? And great, but as opposed to leaving it alone or like making comments, she asks the questions. But why?
mhm.
What is this? Can you explain this to me? And we'll go down the road, and she was like, I'm sorry, I don't understand. And I was like, well, why are you apologizing? i'd rather
But
you i'd
sometimes,
rather you ask me the question,
sometimes you have a bad experience though. Like you can come from an honest place, and maybe that person had a bad day, and you ask them, and you hit that nerve, and you get the flashback. Because I've had that
Yes.
happen to me, so that'll keep you from being like, "Well, I'm not going to ask again," because obviously I didn't ask it the right way, or it's the
Well,
wrong
you know,
day. I
Google is your best friend these
but
days,
I think
honey.
sometimes you gotta you. It's best to really get that physical interaction with a person. I want to look in your eyes and ask you certain things so I can see your response.
Yes,
And
and but let's be honest here. There's a way to ask a question, and there is a way
true,
not to ask a question,
true.
and there's also a way to read the room.
Hmm.
You know, and you have to remember, um, at least people of color in general, and I'm talking all people of color here, that like microaggressions are real, and microaggressions don't only come from white people, right? They
Mhm.
exist across the board,
Right.
right?
Right.
And you need to realize what what you may or may have inherently learned that could be coming across like that
Mhm.
as well, like myself included, because I am not a picture perfect person here. Like I like there has been a lot of learning, and I myself have made mistakes in the past and whatnot, and you move on and you learn. But if you're not educated, how do you know? You know,
Mhm.
and sometimes, and this isn't stuff that they're teaching in school, or you
Right,
know,
exactly, exactly. And so, like, when I come across a friendly person like Michael and I ask the question, I appreciate the true, honest answer. But anytime I ask a question, I always in my head change the word gay to black and think, how would I feel if somebody asked me the same question but replaced it? You know what I mean? And I think
yeah,
that's a good position to be in when you're
absolutely,
curious, because I'm an actual curious person. As you can tell, I'll talk, so I'll come up to you. Maybe my father being in the military helped because we was all over the world. I've seen all kinds of cultures, all kinds of people, so I'm not scared to come up and talk to someone. But
yeah.
you
But not
always
everybody's
got
so
to
lucky.
be right, and you got to always be respectful. Like in the beginning of the conversation we had today, I asked you know, what are the boundaries? Because I'm very conscious of being respectful. And I think if a lot more people were that way, we would be a lot further in all the isms.
Yeah, and to that response, just for the audience, was I don't. There are no boundaries. I don't really. It's very hard to offend me, right? Because I'm an open book and I talk for a living, right? I talk all day long, right? And so and so if you come at me sideways, I certainly will let you know. But like I being somebody who knows how to read the room, and being here with you, and just hearing you speak, I know that you are, or I get the sense that you are, you know, smart enough to know that like it's like you're not gonna ask me anything crazy, you know,
Hey,
in
hey.
this podcast, you know, you're
And
not sitting here.
anything I would ask would come from in a very real place,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
not as
So
a
like,
not as a
and
jerk,
also I'm
you know.
really hard. It's very hard to offend me. You know, you
And I
really
got the
have to be.
feeling of that by looking at your Instagram. So,
Yeah, you're just it's hard to offend. You really have to be like some sort of crazy to offend me. Like, you
but you
know,
know,
or
and
make me feel a
I
certain sort
feel
of
the
way.
same way though with me, and you know, I try to be a conduit of race where you can come ask me, like I don't want to be the poster child, ask your black friend, but I'm gonna give you an honest, real reaction if you want to know. And you know, I think that goes a long way with the quote unquote cancel culture. If you are
Yeah.
able to, you know, be educated and ask from a real place, you're not going to get canceled.
Well, A, yes. B, this is twofold here, because this goes full circle back to my podcast,
Mhm.
because I'm forever talking about why representation matters, right? And there's a big queer food movement happening, and this is why I started the whole thing, because it's a sector of the community that isn't being represented and hasn't had a platform to tell their stories. Great. And you know, the hospitality industry is huge. So
Mhm.
with taking that task on, I have become responsible not only for these people's words and stories, but for my own,
Mhm.
and as a resource for education, right? In a very specific way, because not only do you hear about people who cook, and chef life, and toxic masculinity, and hypermasculine kitchens, and all sorts of like baking and whatnot, but you also hear coming out stories, and growing up in the foster care system, and being thrown out of your house, or identifying as non-binary, and you hear all those stories too. So therefore I have taken on, right, unbeknownst to me, because that's not how that started out, um a large responsibility that I'm very grateful for, to be like a minor source of education here, right? So
Right.
yes, I know I'm going to be asked the questions sometimes, and I'm okay with that. Secondly, cancel culture. If you want to talk about that, like, you know what? There are some people out there that we can do without, because And I say because you know what? Nobody's perfect,
Right.
myself included, right? And so there's somebody out there who says something crazy and then goes on a press tour to try to fix it, but you can tell that they haven't learned,
Hmm.
that they haven't learned anything, right? That they've apologized for apology's sake, but they haven't learned, right? Because their words tell you, "Oh, I didn't learn anything," right? And there was this one person out there who shall remain nameless that like I listened to a podcast that she did, right? She said something crazy about some people and whatnot. She did the press tour, and her publicists or whatnot, like, just didn't educate her. Maybe she doesn't have a team. And I was like, oh, she just needs to stop talking.
Hmm.
Just stop talking. Like, you're making it worse. I feel like you're making it worse for yourself, right? And then the last interview I heard her do, because someone's like, oh, I think this will change your mind, she says something like, "Ugh, you say one wrong thing and people try to cancel you." And I was like, "Oh no." Like, yeah, you should go, girl. You should like you're done. As opposed to, you know what? I fucked up. I own it.
Right.
Own your can I curse on this?
Well, you
Own
did,
your
so let's go.
sorry. I'm so sorry. Right?
Oh
But
my
like that's
God!
my you got me heated now. Own your shit. Own your shit, people. Just own it.
Right.
Own it. I like at some point I realized like, you know what? It's better to be live in a place of truth and facts. Own your stuff. Own your stuff
Mm.
and apologize. I messed up. This was messed up, right? This is what I have learned from this. And yeah, these were the consequences. And I messed up, but I've learned. And what have I learned? I've learned this. I've learned this. What am I doing now? I actually am doing this. I'm in talks with these people to do this, to educate myself more. Bada bing, bada boom. As opposed to I said one wrong thing and these people try to cancel me. It's
Mm.
like, what?
Mhm.
No, no. Well, you know what? Then you deserved it.
You got to take
Right?
responsibility for the good and for the bad.
Yeah. And you're going to mess up. But what have you done to fix that?
Mhm.
You know? Like, what have you done to own it and to better yourself from it? So that's my twofold soapbox there about the whole thing and navigating life through that way and not like letting people ask the questions and knowing, you know what, sometimes I'm gonna mess up too. Sometimes Sean, you're gonna mess up,
Mhm.
you know, and you're gonna own it, hopefully, and be like, you know what, I messed up. I am sorry. You know, I like and you're better for it. There's also at least when I mess up, even like with my friends, like or something like and I don't have surface friends. I have friends that we fight, we argue, we you know, we get mad at each other. But like the next day we're like, "Girl, I messed up. I am so sorry. I was a jerk." Right? Let's go get a drink. And I'm like, "Yeah." And then we move on, you know?
Right.
And it's like and it's the building blocks to a greater relationship because then there's no room for drama. There's no room there's no room for like animosity or like just icky feelings to put it like really simply, you know? And it's just like and there's a lot of room for growth. There's room for growth and like and this like better being like and navigating through the world this way. It's like they can't get you.
Mhm.
Like they can't get you because you're like, yeah, like it's not like I can do no wrong. No, I'll probably do wrong at some point, like, but not on purpose. You know, I'm
Right.
not seeking out to go be a jerk.
All right. So since you're a podcaster, I want to give you a chance and flip the mic over to you and let you ask me a question.
Huh. Okay. All right. Let's see. Let us see. What do we do? Oh, I wish I was prepped for this. I could have like taken you through a whole thing. You know what we're gonna do? I'm gonna do the in your mouth hot seat questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Are you ready to be thrown into the hot seat here,
Let's do it.
Sean?
Let's do it.
Okay. Okay. Give me you may have to edit out a second here while I pull this up. Here we go.
All
You
right.
ready to be in the hot seat, Sean?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Drums or flats?
Oh, definitely drums.
Okay. Bacon, egg, and cheese or cereal?
Turkey, bacon, egg, and cheese.
Oh, okay. J-Lo or Mariah?
Mariah.
Oh, okay. Balsamic or ranch?
It depends. Are wings involved?
Balsamic or ranch?
Let's do. That's a
It's not
hard
very
one.
hot seat if you take 10 minutes to
I
answer the question.
know. Let's go ranch.
Okay. Broadway or broad noodles?
Broadway.
Okay. Oh my God. Cheese platter or dessert?
Dessert.
Liza or Judy?
Liza.
Franks or Tabasco?
Tabasco.
Mac and cheese or cheese and macaroni?
Mac and cheese. I'm from the South.
And now for the bonus question, Wendy's nuggets or McDonald's
Wendy's
nuggets?
all day. All day. All right. So the ranch question was hard
Ah,
because I like, so stereotypically, I'm from the South and I love my chicken, right?
yeah. Listen, I love
So,
my chicken too.
so either one of those are, so the ranch is what I, my go-to with my little wingettes,
Yeah.
but balsamic is what I like to marinate in for the grill.
Oh, oh. Usually so that's usually like a little add-on at the end, like a little bonus
Mm,
that I do, and I'll tailor it to my guests. So if like my guest is a pastry chef,
mm,
there'll be a lot of more you know, baked goods in there,
mm.
right? Or like there's on the next podcast that's coming out, it's these women that travel the world and go like really immerse themselves into culture. And so like there was like weird foods in there, you know. I
Mm.
asked them about like I think camel meat or balut, and balut is the Filipino duck egg
Okay.
embryo
Mm.
that like you crack open and drink the juice and
Yeah.
then eat like the little duck embryo. Bleh. Uh, but it's a delicacy, and so like that's how that happens. And it's really a joy. There's some staple questions, but it's really a joy to see people kind of like have a meltdown about the choices and not
Yeah,
be able,
'cause
much like you did, being like,
that was an easy but it was hard in my life.
yeah. Like the questions aren't hard, but like people get really emotional about like some things about like balsamic or ranch or about like J-Lo. They're like, I don't know, or about like Liza Minnelli or Judy Garland. They're like, how are you going to make me choose? And I was like, it's a question. Pick, you know?
All right, one last question for you.
Yeah.
What is your favorite dish to prepare right now?
Oh my goodness. You know what? I'm on the gay diet. I'm just going to say it. And the stereotype of it all. There is no carbs in my life these days because it's Pride Month,
Yeah.
and we all got to be shirtless out there in the streets, right? giving you the hot girl summer, the hot boy summer, the hot person summer. Um, and the COVID weight hasn't been cute, but you know what? I think the COVID weight. Shout out to all the thick and juicies out there. Whether you're slightly thick and juicy or you real thick and juicy, because I think the COVID weight. And here we go on another soapbox, has done a wonder for the body dysmorphia of it all, for the good feelings of it all, because I think people are like, oh yeah, I actually kind of really like this like normal body of it all. Like, why do we all need a six pack, or why do we all need to look like, I don't know, Idris Elba, Channing Tatum, like even the Will Smith of it all. Like, you saw that whole thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
He had full dad bod, right? And all the people were here for it. So, so yeah, but so I'm making a lot of like three bean salads that these days that I pair with like grilled chicken. It's like not very exciting, but simply delicious. I brought my friend Justin some the other day. He goes, "That was really good, Michael." He goes, "I wasn't." He goes, "I said yes," but he goes, "I was like, all right, I guess I need to be eating healthy too." He goes, "But it was really delicious." He goes, "I housed that, and it was super simple, like lemon juice, this and that." But what I really would love to, I am a very eclectic cook. I call my cooking elevated comfort food,
Mhm.
right? Because I'll take your mac and cheese and do something extra to it, right? I'm not like throwing raisins or anything crazy in it,
Mm.
like but like I'll sometimes if I'm in a mood for curry, maybe I'll make curried mac and cheese, and it's really
That
freaking
sounds good.
delicious. Is
Yeah.
I mean, it's really
So you
good.
got to come down here because down here we're the East Coast beach community, so
Yeah,
everything is seafood.
love
And
it.
one of the staples down here is seafood mac and cheese.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a shrimp mac and cheese, a lobster mac and cheese. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
You know?
Both mac and cheese. Yes.
You know,
With a little bit of
I've been
crab meat in there. Yeah.
yeah. I've been on those of you out there listening, don't judge, don't judge. I've been on a little bit of like a plant-based vegan, like sort of like like a day here, a day there.
Mhm.
Um, try it out, folks. Try. I know people are going to be like, ugh, ugh, right?
Yeah.
With it all, folks. Little do you know, you probably eat more plant-based than you realized
Mhm.
because all plant-based means is that you're eating your vegetables.
Right. Right.
So if you threw that side of broccoli in with your chicken, or you threw, you know, some green beans in with, you know, your steak, that's you're eating half plant-based already.
Mhm.
And there's a company out there, and none of these people are paying me, like none of these people are sponsors of either one of us. But I love to support good people and doing good things. Miokos
Mhm.
makes this like vegan cream cheese that is so delicious. It's really effing good. It's so
So my
good.
problem with the whole vegan diet is it costs 3 times as much.
Lies, Liza Minnelli lies. Right? Yeah. Because I suffered from a severe case of diabetes myself.
Okay.
Right? Because I was of the same mindset, and I love to run my mouth on my podcast. And people came after me after I said, "Oh my God, it's so expensive! It's so expensive to eat." Not anymore. Not anymore. You literally can go into certain spaces of your grocery store and find it all on sale. It's really like, because the market is so saturated, and I didn't realize, and I was corrected greatly by a lot of my guests about it, that it really isn't that expensive. And there's a way to do it really deliciously, that and you have to think too, right? Global warming is a thing. Absolutely. We have to take care of our planet for our children, for your daughter, this and that. And the gas emissions of, like, listen, we're talking, when people talk about gas emissions, whether you know what that means or don't mean, gas emissions means, in layman terms, cow farts,
Right.
cow and pig farts,
Right.
right? and truck exhaust.
Uh-huh.
That's what gas emissions mean. And yeah, it's gross to be on this podcast talking about cow farts, but you think about it, it's this major farm packed with 1,000, a million cows,
And
and they're
that's
feeding them
methane gas. Yep.
and that's methane gas going into the ozone, which creates so on and so forth, yada yada yada. Whatever, but that's what it is in layman's terms. So fine, you took a day where you just ate vegetables, and you made succotash. How many of you in the South eating
Oh
succotash? You know
yeah,
what that
yeah,
is?
yeah.
Plant based. That's plant based. Hello, and it's delicious,
Well,
right?
all right. So, and again, excuse me because all right,
And
it's
it's
this
not that
restaurant
much.
here that they're
Yeah,
vegan, right?
yeah.
But it's like they always are trying to substitute meats. Like they have a vegan steak that's made out of mushrooms. Why don't you just say it's a mushroom? Why do you got to
Because
fool me and tell me it's a steak?
yeah,
And then
because
I'm going in with all these preconceived notions. And so now I got to be like, does it really taste like a steak or does it not? Or can I just
no.
enjoy what it
So
is?
you just need to accept the marketing and the branding of it all, right?
Mm,
The Instagrammable of it all, you know, because there's this place in the city that does uh, mushroom buffalo wings. Obviously,
mm,
it's not a buffalo wing,
mm,
right? It's mushrooms that are breaded in buffalo sauce. It's one of the. It's really really delicious,
mm.
right? But I am under no assumption that I'm eating chicken right now. I know but it's super delicious. And once you get over that, being like, I know I'm not eating steak, I'm eating mushrooms, and it's delicious.
But I don't
And
think
and
you
it's
should
a
even have to introduce that into it. Just be like, eat this great
yeah,
mushroom.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. But like, once again, it's the marketing and the branding of it all. You know, it's like look at this new car that does X, Y, and Z. What? Hello. The Geico lizard is so famous. You're never gonna see a lizard selling you insurance though in person,
Right, right.
right? Where you're under no impression that this lizard is real, but it's that of it all. And so, yeah, but like, listen, you don't even have to go down the road of fake meat, even though the Beyond Meat these days is pretty good. Or like I made meatballs out of that one day, like Italian meatballs, and all I did was add store-bought, like pre-made Italian mix and some, and it wasn't completely vegan because I used Parmesan cheese. Delicious, you
Mhm.
know. Um, and one day out of your diet isn't going to kill you, and it's going to be healthier for you, and it's not so out of your box out there to do that because you most likely are already eating vegetables.
Mhm.
Period. I don't know
Listen,
how I got on
at
a
a
vegan
right
soapbox
at a
all of a
risk of
sudden, but
starting another rant though, but that's the United States of it. That's the programming of it. That
yeah.
you gotta have
But
meat.
listen, you can have your Wendy's nuggets, you can have your Popeye's chicken, and balance it out another day. But
Mhm.
it's all about the balance, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm
Legit,
going
all
through
about
that
the balance.
now with
Because
my health concerns and things. Yeah.
and let's not be under the impression that like I took on a part-time job here in the city, right? Just for some extra money, and my best friend works at this place too. It's a boat here in the city that's a restaurant, and we work there, and all they serve are fish and chips and burgers and chicken finger, all fried foods, right? It's delicious, right? Because
Mhm.
everything's homemade. But like every so often for family meal or for the meal that they give their employees, it's that you're eating that. It's not salads. The salad that they give you is from the burger. They just take the lettuce, tomato, and onion off the burger and
Mhm.
throw it on a plate. That's not a salad, boo.
Right.
But like, so I'm eating that on occasion, but am I eating that? If I ate that every day, do you know how sluggish and like weighty I would be? No. Like, but do I allow myself that? An Old Bay fry? Absolutely. I love some Old Bay fries.
Right.
But to balance that out, right? Because you asked me what am I eating these days? To balance that out, it is that three bean salad and some, grilled chicken with like, I don't know, barbecue sauce, jerk chicken sauce, or like,
See that you didn't touch it. You didn't touch the nerve. That's my favorite. I'll
so
take jerk anything.
yeah, delicious. And
Jerk
there's some real
mushrooms. That's what I need right there.
jerk. I mean, Sean, why don't you try making it? It's not that hard. It can't be that hard, right? And you don't even have to bread it and fry it. Hello, the air fryers are the biggest thing on the market
Yes.
these days.
That
Air fryers are the biggest thing
my
on the
air
market
fryer
these days.
replaced my foreman, and I thought the foreman was everything. My
Boom,
air
and
fryer is the best
it
thing in
doesn't
my
even
kitchen.
need to be breaded.
Yeah.
Spray it with some olive oil,
Hmm.
throw some ranch powder on it. Yeah, I just said it. At the MSG and all, throw some ranch powder on, throw it in the air fryer. Boom. And there you go. You're eating mushrooms, a lot of salt, right? Sorry. But even there's so many good, like local people, I'm sure, especially in the South, making their own all purpose seasonings, like a
Hmm.
jerk seasoning that isn't even super fatty, all saucy, this and that, or super like high sugar that are delicious. You can have your cake and eat it too. You
Yeah.
can have your cake and eat it too. There's the title of this episode. You can, yeah, with the diet of it all and be eating really delicious things that you love, and sometimes balance it out once a week with some, fried fish, some or your favorite fast food or whatever it is that like, your guilty pleasure,
Mhm.
Listen, I'm a cookie monster. Like I have to stop myself by from passing by the local cookie shop here because I would have them every night, right?
Yeah.
But do I deny myself? No, but there's a limit,
Right.
to it all. Just because I'm really active and I can't be like weighed down and whatnot, and plus I don't have a budget for new clothes, so the clothes I have need to fit.
That's a whole nother
Period.
conversation we're about to have because I've been on this weight loss journey for a minute. And but that's one of
So
my motivations is because I love clothes. So that's one of my motivations is, once I lose this weight, I get a whole nother closet. So
yeah,
yeah.
the biggest lie we as people have been fed is the diet. The biggest lie that we as like an entire nation or just like America in general has been this idea of dieting, right? And eliminating and being like you can't to get to your whatever your fitness weight goals is, you have to eliminate or you cannot have. And in my opinion at least, is your fitness and weight loss goals all dependent on the diet?
Mhm.
Absolutely. You cannot out train your diet no
Mhm.
matter what anybody says. You will not out train your diet, but you can have your cake and eat it too. It's just how you do it, right? And it's how basically how I'm doing it, right? And once again, not a sponsor, but it's kind of the way Weight Watchers works is they're allowing you to eat what you want, right? That's the way that you can have what you want and still lose weight. You will lose more weight if you eat the things that are 0 points as opposed to 10 points every day, right?
Mhm.
But it'll it's it's this once again, it's all about balance. It's literally all about balance and having your cake and eating it too. Like, yeah, like I love some company for Pride sent me a rainbow cake, right?
Right.
Like a DIY rainbow cake, like
Mhm.
just to promote themselves. I was very grateful for it. Yeah, right. Did I did I have a large amount, a large slice of it? And I thought, listen, there's there is a large woman living inside, right? The Puerto Rican me,
Right.
uh, and and I will find myself eating over the trash can because I love my sweets and I love my savory foods. But I took the rest of that cake and I quickly got it out of my apartment,
Yeah.
because I would have devoured the whole thing like
Right.
that within a day. I have no self control, but like yeah, like it's right. And I love my booze too, and so I drink, and so it's that, and there's a lot of sugar in that, and
Mhm.
so it's the balance of it all, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. All right. So I gotta ask you this is my wrap up question. I got to get ready and go pick my mother up. And I don't think she realizes how popular she is in my group, but mommy calls, so I have to be attentive.
Yep, shout out to all the moms out there, right? Holding
so,
it down.
so this is usually my wrap up question. If a young Michael came to you and said that, I need some advice, what would be your best advice you would give him to have him prepared for the world?
Hold on. Hold on. And be not afraid because there is growing up. Oof, Lord. Growing up, especially growing up in cultural households, right? Ethnic households, cultural households that are rooted in religion and deeply steeped in culture. There's a lot of things that aren't talked about. So once again, there's no education about certain subjects, right?
Mhm.
So when you're dealing with issues, not issues is the wrong word. When you're dealing with self-discovery in no matter what way it
Mhm.
is, right? When you're dealing with self-discovery and you have this outside world eh, putting all these negative things on you, you don't know what you do to do, and so like there's this inner shell that like young Michael retreated into, and there was a lot to deal with. There was a lot happening at home that I was dealing with, that he was dealing with, and there was a lot happening in the outside world that he was dealing with, while and there was a lot happening inside. So hold on, because it's going to be okay. You're going to figure it out, right? Stay strong, stay strong, and and just like don't be afraid because like I navigate like young Michael navigated life being very afraid for a very long time,
Mhm.
and that's what I would impart on young Michael. But through that experience, I am who I am today, and I'm in the best place of my life. And do I have problems? Of course, don't we all? But like other than that, like that's what that's what my advice would be.
Awesome. So, how can people get in contact with you and find your podcast?
Well, my podcast, if you're listening to this podcast, you already listen to podcasts. So my podcast is found anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, from Apple to Spotify to Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Facebook, yeah, everywhere. It's called In Yo Mouth. Put that in your mouth. In your mouth. My website is themunoz.com. That's the MUNOZ.com. On Instagram, I am at In Yo Mouth Pod, or my main Instagram is The Kitchen Gaily, Gaily, or daily with a G, The Kitchen Gaily, or just Google Michael Munoz, and after the Oklahoma football player, you will find me.
Michael, I really appreciate this, man. Thank you for taking your time out. This has been a great discussion, if not for my listeners, for me myself. So I really am honored to have you here. And shout out to one of your victories, being listed on Apple. And you tell the people.
Yeah. Well, first, I want to say to you, thank you for lending me your platform. It's always very humbling, and I'm always very honored when people ask me to come into their space and kind of turn the tables on me, because it's happening a little bit more these days, but it's I do and I do what I do, and I didn't really expect this to turn around on me the way it has, in such a beautiful way. So thank you for lending me your space, your platform, your audience, just to listen to me and my story. And I think that's it's very, very special, and so I really want to thank you for having me on. A B, I was very honored also this month that Apple Podcasts chose me amongst a bunch of others to recommend me on their Pride playlist under Passionate Spirits. So they did a collection of LGBTQ podcasts under a Pride playlist, and then they subcategoried them, and I'm under Passionate Spirits. And for those of you that don't know out there, it's really hard to get onto those
That's
things
a huge deal.
if you don't know. If you don't know somebody on the inside, which I don't know anybody on the inside. I'm only famous to my mother and myself. so so it really is a big deal that somebody on that back end found me and found my voice and decided to amplify not only my voice but those of my guests. So it's really, really super special and super humbling.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to another episode of the 757 Renaissance Man podcast. You can, instead of now having to say you can find me here, and here, just go to 757renaissanceman.com and you can find all the things. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an honor. Michael, thank you very much. I'm Sean. This is Michael, and we are out.
Peace.